I lost my job at 33 years old. I was laid off. It wasn't a huge shocker, and I'd always been a big saver. By this time, I was making good money, and like it wasn't a huge shocker. But I wasn't fulfilled. I mean, I kind of mindlessly went into a consulting business. I started a consulting business, kind of like taking a step, like not really one that was authentic to what I wanted to do with my life, but it was a step, and it was the best step I could make at the time. I didn't know that work was supposed to feel good.
Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Mindset Live. So glad you decided to join us today. My name is Greg Tomczyk, host of the Connected Mindset Live, former professional baseball player turned cybersecurity coach, where now I get to help business leaders and their companies build trust from the inside out. I find myself often mentioning trust the process. They're so into the end result. And what we're going to talk about today is a little bit different than the process, but we're going to talk through the processes that Mr. Matt Gerlach and I have went through. But today we're going to talk a lot about progress. I know a lot of people listening in today want to have progress in their business, their personal lives. And there's a balance between those. A lot of times we're being pulled between that inner peace and the prosperity we want, either from a financial or feeling standpoint, societal, community standpoint. So really looking forward to diving into this episode. Matt, good morning, and thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. We're happy you're here, and looking forward to learning more about your background. So one of the ways we like to start the episodes is to understand the younger Matt to better understand the Matt sitting in front of us today.
Well, where do I start? I think what I want to say about this is I never knew that like failure was an option, or I never knew like that. Like I just figured out how to do things. I remember, being like 10 years old, and I wanted a bigger bed. I wanted a full size bed from my twin size bed. And I, drove my parents crazy, convincing them to open up a credit card at the Montgomery Ward. And I went and bought it. I made payments. I mowed the neighbors' lawns. I, did chores around the house. And it just makes me laugh now, because like what I wouldn't give for a young Matt Gerlach living in the neighborhood that would, for $10, like wash my car or, set up my modem or whatever. All these things that I figured out now that I hate doing. And I just I made adults' lives so much easier and I did well, like I like took the blinds out of the house and like scrubbed them perfectly, and I knew I was doing better than most adults would do. My parents were clean and very meticulous as well. And they always were impressed with my work. And I was just always determined and figured things out. And, but at the same time, as I reflect on my journey, I never knew that I was supposed to feel good. I just thought that something was wrong with me for not feeling well. I didn't know that emotional health, really, I'm 40 years old, 41 in a month, just to give context. And up till about 8 years ago, I literally did not know that emotional health mattered. And, I'm in a family where there was a lot of generational trauma. I don't think my parents really felt that great all the time either. And we just pushed, you just get the job done, and it later caught up with me. But yeah, I was a determined person. I wish that I would have really known what I was capable of. Like, the first 10, 15 years of my career, first 10 years, I didn't make very much money. I made just like $60,000 a year when I was 28 years old, which isn't nothing, but it's like for the level of work that I was doing. I had friends that were making 100, 110, at that point. I just didn't know that I was as valuable as I am. And now, like, when I see what I've done with my career, starting my own business and what I've done for them, I know my worth now.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I love the reflection you've done. I can tell you thought through that, young Matt what were your superpowers, but then what were also some of the things that you could have improved upon. And obviously we can't be perfect when we're up and coming and learning ourselves. I think it's most of the time a painful process.
Mhm.
And what did it take to get you there? And I know self-worth is one of those things that are built over time, but what did it take to get you there to say, I need to start taking care of my emotional health and understand that these symbols of awesomeness, the symbols of your self-worth were there enough for you to start believing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a unique story. It kind of hit rock bottom of sorts. I'm lucky that mine wasn't too detrimental. I mean, I didn't like fall asleep in a gutter or anything like that, luckily. But I was living in New York. I was about 33 years old. I just started a consulting business. I randomly fell into this baby product sales industry. Baby products. I worked for some, very big customers some very big brands that a lot of your listeners, I'm sure, would know. Skip Hop, Aiden and Nene, and Oxo. And I lost my job at 33 years old. I was laid off. It wasn't a huge shocker, and I'd always been a big saver. By this time, I was making good money, and um, like it wasn't a huge shocker. But I wasn't fulfilled. I mean, I kind of mindlessly went into a consulting business. I started a consulting business, kind of like taking a step, but not really one that like not really one that was authentic to what I wanted to do with my life. But it was a step, and it was the best step I could make at the time. I didn't know that work was supposed to feel good.
Yeah.
And, so I started this business, and the first like 3 months, I was already up to or the third month, I was already making $15,000 a month or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hell bent and determined to drive it to success, and so the thing that happened was I didn't value myself appropriately. I had 5 clients paying $3,000 to $5,000 a month each, and just literally coming in as a general manager almost. It was insane the amount of work I was doing. I couldn't set boundaries. I was being walked all over. I was also driven to work. I mean, I don't know if I have that exact tenacity still, but at that point, it was the prime of my career, and I was I truly loved being in my email all the time, and it was just driving me. I was going crazy. I was working 18 hours a day. My relationship was suffering from it, and I was drinking a lot. Not to get out of not to get out of bed kind of drinking, but I was living in New York. I mean, people drink in New York. It's a social thing. A big part of my success was I networked very well. Glasses of wine with lunch, drinking at dinner. I was on an airplane all the time, drinking on the airplane. Everyone liked me. I mean, I was a fun guy. I smoked cigarettes at the time, which just honestly blows my mind, because I think if I had a cigarette now, I'd probably have an anxiety attack from the nicotine. But yeah, I was just harming my body so much. I wasn't sleeping. I was drinking probably, who knows, 5 cups of coffee a day. And I was working out, so I wasn't I looked good. And that's, I think, one of the hard things. A lot of us that are suffering on the inside look fine on the outside. I was thinner because I wasn't eating as much. A lot of times I was so busy that lunch would just be an apple or something like that. But so anyways, so the job demands really weighed on me, and I started to feel depressed. I wouldn't have necessarily called it depression at that point, but I went to the doctor. She found out I was depressed. She said, "You're depressed," and she found out that I had high blood pressure, and that was the big shocker, because I knew what high blood pressure was, and I knew that mine was not. I was really happy when I went to the doctor up until that point, and it was 110/70 or something. It was good, and this time it was probably 140/90 or something, which she was like, "It's not that bad, you don't need to stress." But I really stressed about it, and I think I was feeling so bad on the inside that growing up, mental health wasn't a reason to sit out. It wasn't a reason to slow down. And so I think subconsciously, it's kind of cool to 8 years later look back on this. I've been writing a book for the past few years, and it's really been an exercise of introspection and really figuring out what this was all about. And I'm pretty clear now. I think I was feeling so bad on the outside that I didn't believe, so bad on the inside that I didn't believe it wasn't because there was something really wrong with me. Physically, physically, medically wrong with me. And blood pressure was high. I was panicking, and then I ended up in the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack. I look back on that now and realize it was a panic attack. My blood pressure was like 190 over 110, and I had chest pain and shortness of breath, and went to the hospital, and they kept me overnight. It happened again a couple of years later. Also, I started having panic attacks while driving. So this just became so disruptive in my life where I had to do something. And I wasn't, I was very cooperative at the time. I was in yoga, and I dove deeper into yoga, and I was happy to go to therapy and just really happy to figure it out. But this made it so debilitating. Like Oprah says, that your life will send you wake-up calls until you listen, and the wake-up calls will just keep getting louder until you listen. And for me, going to the hospital was obviously unfortunate, but I came out and I was fine. But the panic attacks were, while driving, were really just to the point where I couldn't drive anymore, and I really had to figure this out.
Yeah, it's like almost when it became a survival thing, because you have to drive to get to where you can fulfill your purpose or go to work to make the bills, and that can be very stressful. And I know I went through a similar, up and down. I got out of baseball, was very lost. I went to work for a corporate company. Happy hours were Monday through Thursday. Friday the friends came in town, and it was kind of like a revolving, it was almost like a revolving hangover that I didn't know I was hungover, because it was just like drink the coffee, eat the big lunch, and then it just it patched up and put a Band-Aid over the symptoms on the inside. Because coming from a military family to professional sports where nobody talks about emotions, it's kind of like bad just happened, move on to the next one, and over time it builds up in your system. And to me, that was my version of depression, because I was just taking the things I was avoiding and just stuffing them down. And when I got out of baseball, when I was able to find the career I wanted to get into outside of corporate America, my internal system started to tell my external system, like, all right, you're sick on the inside. Like you need to do something different. And, like you said, I was working out too. And it was, one of those things where you kind of feel good at the top layer, but everything below it is like decaying and not being addressed. So I think, to me, that, I think it's the nervous system. I think yoga helps a lot with the nervous system. Obviously, different types of therapies, talking through it, kind of releasing things. I found like breath work and things of that nature help, release some of that tension, because if you think about like all of your tendons and ligaments are really tight, that's going to impact your muscles, which is going to impact your organs. And I think that process that you went through to release that, when did you feel like kind of the ultimate release? Like, of, I know you're going to yoga and it was a slow process, but was there a point in time where you were like, it took me 6 months of, therapies and yoga, and then one day it just kind of felt like I was now free?
I would say it took me probably about 6 years to really feel that way. And that's, I felt relief, there were points along the way that I felt better, but where it's crazy right now, just like that. I don't feel anxious or depressed, and I haven't for the past couple of years. And there's a lot in my life, finances go up and down sometimes, and I just marvel at this. 5 years ago, I would be absolutely not able to handle this. And I don't feel, I'm not saying it won't come back one day. I'm sure life will throw me something that's going to keep me awake at night, but I think it's a constant journey. It's a constant journey, and, you just get better and better. I don't sleep all that well sometimes. There's some changes going on right now in my life, and it's mainly exciting, but I haven't slept that well a couple of these past nights, but I've noticed this, and my partner noticed this as well. I used to wake up, I go to bed early, at, 8:30 or so. And then sometimes I'll wake up at 1 o'clock and just toss and turn. I still get 4 hours of sleep, which is, I'm not saying is good, but it's not nothing, And and it's happened a couple of times this past week, and I just roll with it better now. Like, you just take it just take it a day at a time, and stuff like that would have been like, I'm so upset, I wanted to go lift weights, and like I'm too fatigued to do that. Now, if that happens, I go to yoga, or I'll take the dog for a walk, just roll with it. And but yeah.
Is that to you, now that you reflect on things and have that feeling now, is that the inner peace that you feel like everybody needs when you have that? It's almost like your voice inside that's processing the world and then telling your inside what that means to you is more of a calm voice. When I know that feeling when you're in bed and you're like, I want to get 3 more hours of sleep so I can go work out. It's kind of like the external gets translated as anger, and then you tell yourself like, I'm angry, and then your body starts to feel angry. And it sounds like your filters have, and obviously you consciously did this through everything that you did, is now filtering that as more calm and peaceful from a translation standpoint.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm a big fan of Stoicism. Somebody gave me the Daily Stoic, like, I don't know, probably 7 years ago, and it's funny. I read it every single day, just about. And I think it's honestly like really permeated, and it's worked. And it's funny, the book is like, it looks like it's been thrown out a car window and ran over, because it's just been like read so many times. But like, essentially Stoicism, I'm not an expert, I'm sure there's people that know this more than I do, but it's like really just like learning what you can control and what you can't control. And I don't worry about things I can't control anymore. And it's like, I think it's kind of the secret to life, because you put so much energy. Like, I don't think we realize how much energy negative things take from us. And I don't know that we ever quite realize. I think we're constantly leaving toxic situations or negative situations. And like, probably throughout throughout my whole life, I'm going to be like, wow, I was surprised like how much that was sucking from me. So, there's a lot more of like learning what I can control. And a big piece is like, going back to the childhood piece, like, I look back at like how many times I have like not been able to pay my bills. The answer is 0. How many times I've not been able to figure something out? The answer is 0. Like, the track record is pretty stellar, that I really rely on that now, and I've learned that I'm probably going to be okay. And you have to allow yourself the ups and downs, and like, that's what cushions are for. That's, like, and going back to the workout example, like, literally, who cares if you can't work out one day?
Yeah.
Like, it literally makes no difference in the world at all. I think the workout is nice for mental health, and you're probably similar. A walk is probably going to give you that sort of benefit, yoga, like, so it's just being easier on yourself, and just knowing what you can control. It's a lot of freedom, I have to tell you, from someone who just used to be a perfectionist. It's changed a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of achievers try to be perfect because what they see in the outside world is the people who have already achieved it, and their life looks like perfection. Like, everything is so clear cut, their offerings, the way they sell it. And I think along the journey, people get distracted by that, to think that, all of the chess pieces need to be right on the center of that, that square, or like everything needs to be perfect. And I still feel like I try to make things as best as they can possibly be and always improve them. But knowing that they're never going to be exactly perfect gives me that inner peace that I need to say, just because it's a little bit off, just because I'm not going to be able to get that workout in, does not mean the whole chessboard needs to be thrown up in the air and destroyed. And that's how I felt for a long time, where, I would get to where a couple loses or losses would happen, and I would like lay in bed all day, or like I'd like just kind of like I'd have to give up for a little bit to give myself enough grace to be able to wake up and say like, all right, I'm starting from 0, but now I have to rebuild everything that I created, as opposed to saying I just need to optimize what's already there and improve what's already there, as opposed to destroying it and rebuilding. I think that's a much easier process. So.
Yeah. And on that too, I mean, there's two things. I do think the perfectionism piece is a lot about trauma, and like in childhood, maybe it's just even little t trauma, small trauma thing, trying to be perfect, trying to get your good grades. I'm not exactly like well versed enough to speak about like the complexities of that, but it's like we are rewarded for being perfect. You get good grades and you're rewarded for that. And I think there's validity in that. I mean, it is important that kids try their best, but I think that there needs to be an amount of grace offered, to children. And if it's not, then us as adults taking responsibility for our lives, we need to learn to reparent ourselves so we can give ourselves that grace. And with that, also, it's like you fall off the wagon and you don't have to fall off the wagon that far. Like, on a Friday night, you drink too much or you go crazy on the chocolate cake. It doesn't mean like keep doing that all weekend. And I'm not saying this from like a weight point, like a weight or like a body image point of view either. For me, like, I think when you're younger, your mental health maybe isn't as affected by like what you eat and what you put in your body. Now at this point, like, I take care of my body because like I know that if I eat too much sugar or drink too much alcohol, like mentally it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So when you eat too much, I like sweets. I do. I do have a lot of control over it these days, which is kind of a newer thing over the past few years. There was a time when like I would go back and get seconds or thirds of ice cream. Now I would say I'd never do that. But just because you ate bad on a Friday doesn't mean you keep doing it all weekend. Like Saturday morning, wake up, go for a run, have a banana, drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
Rebound faster. It's not a lost cause.
Yeah, it's so key because once we get that rush of, the alcohol or the fun time or the cake, it's like I'm already in the hole. Might as well stay in the hole for a little bit and then I'll climb out, next week or, in the new year. Like we're in this like revolving loop of the bad already happened. So it's very rigid. It's like this already happened. Let's just continue it until we have this set date when we can improve our health, as opposed to having the flexibility, the adaptability to say, hey, I can have, cake and ice cream on Friday night. Like that's perfectly fine. Like I know that the rest of the week I'm eating well and taking care of myself, hydrating. It's like that's the bad stuff can be enjoyed, but it's addicting. It's because it's that dopamine rush that we get, and we have to be able to control our chemical levels because our body's, chemistry project. And I've found through heart rate variability, which is something big that's measured nowadays through like Whoop devices and things of that nature. I find that when my heart rate variability is lower, so that means that my heart's beating faster, I am more vulnerable to make those bad decisions. And when I do the bad thing, my heart rate variability goes down, so my heart rate's higher. So because my body's like survive, get more sugar, like get back up to your levels. So that's been one of the things that I just kind of look at and I'm like, all right, it's low. Now I'm going to take it as a little bit of a challenge to get it back high and keep it there as long as possible. But I used to, before I had that type of metric, because I'm, somebody who does things at 100%, like I'm like, hey, I'm going to work out 3 times a day. It's like, if I don't get the 3 times, I have lack of self-confidence. And, I had to like break through that in order to give myself that grace that we talked about. But also once I do something that I consider, not as good for me, I'm able to just get that, one-time thing and then bounce back. And I think that's kind of like people say resilience, like your ability to bounce back. I think, that's kind of that mental and emotional resilience to be able to, go through some difficult times, whether it's eating cake. It's not difficult, it's enjoyable, but also be able to bounce back quickly. And that's part of the preparation, mental preparation. And I think a lot of that's emotional, because I know I'm an emotional eater. When I'm going through, I say big emotions to my kids when I'm going through big feelings. I know I'm more adept to want to have a glass of wine or want to go, eat a whole cake or have a full pizza. They used to give us pizza in minor league baseball. Like they'd be like, just eat a box of pizza and you'll feel rejuvenated after a full game. And I know I felt like crap after. And so that's how I was trained. And I think that's a lot of my nervous system. That was my emotional health of like, I had a tough game. I'm being handed a box of pizza to eat my emotions away and put them to the side. And it took me 3-4 years to really first recognize it and then be able to take action on it, which I think is the hardest part.
I think the eating thing is it's a very, so many of us like weren't told the proper nutrition. I think a lot of eating is focused on like your body, like you don't want to look fat, so eat healthy vegetables. And like, I love to cook, and it's not always like the, I don't, I try to be efficient with my time, and we try to eat very, very healthy on the weekdays, because on the weekends I do like the burgers and the pizza, and I do have burgers and pizza like
Yeah.
most weekends, sometimes 2 or 3 days of the weekends. But come Monday, it's, beans and salmon and broccoli, and that's, lunch and dinner. My partner and I, we don't mind eating the same thing. Like, of course, it'd be great to have something different every day, but we make a lot of food, a lot of leftovers. But I don't think that people understand like that really promotes like good mental health, and it's important for that. And nutrition, like, and vegetables. I eat a lot of vegetables, and and I'm approaching this from a privileged place. I do understand that eating healthy does cost money. But all food costs money now. I think McDonald's is like what, $10 or something for like a burger and fries now or something. And I have McDonald's once a year, maybe. I don't mind it, but I don't have it too often. But
It's good. Yeah.
but yeah, all food's pretty expensive. But I don't think we were really taught like that nutrition benefits our mental health so much. And and I think like it does take time. There's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's like one of the best books ever. I haven't read it for a while, but he's really remarkable and talks all about habits and how you make habits. And it's been a while since I've read it, so I'm not that well versed. But it's like habit stacking and like so doing like other things after like putting a routine in place. And it's like what I said, like I would really rather have a cheeseburger every single day, but Mondays are it's the salmon or chicken and beans and broccoli or whatever. And it's just kind of the way Mondays go these days. And it's become routine. And it's, Tim Ferriss is one of my like favorite, he's a podcaster, he's way more than that. But he talks about like rules and how rules make life so much easier because you're not like having to negotiate, So if the rule is I never go out to dinner on Mondays, then it becomes a lot easier. And I know it's hard to make some rules, but no eating out on Mondays or always eating healthy on Mondays or something. It's a rule that once you get it into place, it's not negotiable. You don't break that rule, and it just makes it easier to follow.
Yeah, I love both of those authors because they talk a lot about, it's almost like automating, right? So you don't have to think so hard about, do I eat out tonight? Do I not? And then that makes you tired, trying to think about those decisions. And if you have to make those, you get tired, then you just kind of, settle below the standard that you want to set. And I think James Clear was actually a minor league baseball player too. So we have that in common. And he actually took a lot of his things that he pulled from it, from the rhythm of sports. And sports is very habitual because it's superstitious. They have a lot of superstitions in sports. It's like, oh, you have to tie your shoe this way or else you're going to have a bad game. And Rob Dyrdek talks a lot about like the rhythm of existence. And for an athlete, and I know you exercise and do yoga, like a rhythm's important in those modalities. And I think once we realize that we can consciously shape that rhythm, and it's not something the outside world like says, hey, you have to eat McDonald's every day, or you have to do this because of the income you have, and like consciously building your rhythm of existence. And then obviously you have to find gaps and improve in different areas to get you there continuously. But I think when people think about it like a rhythm, like a song, like how they kind of go through life and have the habits and the rules that they want, that really, I think, solves a lot of the emotional voids that a lot of us have. Because when we feel like the outside world is controlling us, we're just kind of surrendering in the wrong way, as opposed to being able to know what we believe and then surrender to the things we can't control, which I think that to me has allowed me to have the inner peace enough to allow myself to prosper both personal and business wise. And until I got there, which was extremely hard to get there, it wasn't easy. It took a lot of years to get there, and I'm still evolving. But it makes connecting with people, being transparent about the needs that I have and how I want to serve people and help people out. It just makes it that much easier to be more authentic to myself first. Like I trust myself more, and that allows other people to bring trust in. So I'm interested in, your thoughts on, did you have to go through that inner peace journey before your business started to prosper, or did you prosper and then say, oh crap, I'm broken inside, and then have to kind of break through that to get to the next level of your prosperity?
1,000% the latter. 1,000% the latter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm kind of in a stage of reinventing my career.
Yeah.
Not kind of. I mean, I totally am. This baby product consulting business that I've had has been extremely lucrative. For me. I've learned to advocate for my worth, and for the past couple of years, I've made $1 million a year from learning my worth, which is just absolutely nothing I ever would have expected. And I'm not sharing that to be arrogant. I'm sharing that because I want people to see what's work. I came from a blue collar family, and I never would have thought this would be the case. I went to college, I have a 4-year degree, but I don't have any sort of advanced degrees or anything. And it's a service business. I mean, I literally had to buy a laptop. I don't even have a website for this business. And it just shows you like what you can do, like if you really set your mind to it. And I had a lot of strategy help. As things got going, I had a coach that really took me under her wing and helped me learn how to advocate for my worth, and kind of like was like, Matt, like, what are you doing for these businesses? Well, I grew their sales from 0 to, $10 million, and helped me understand the value that I was really, bringing to them. But I want to do something that's I've been called to do something a lot more purpose driven. And just like when I look at myself and my circle, like my friends and family, I have grown notably. Like, I mean, I don't want to put anybody else down or anything like that, but like just like the amount of growth that I've achieved is remarkable. And I want to help other people do this. And I've started working with, I'm like a life coach and mentoring other men and women right now. And it's been very interesting to see like what people are struggling with. And it's something that I think everybody is struggling with something similar. It's, setting goals and going after those goals. And it's been remarkable to see that I have these skills and are able to help people achieve, to set goals. I mean, how many people haven't really ever had the tools to set goals or don't know how to do that? And it's a lot what we've talked about. I think setting goals is scary because you're not going to achieve every goal you set, and there's going to be setbacks. And literally, like when I put my to-do list together every day, I might achieve 20% of it as planned. Like you just have to learn to develop the skills to, to roll with things. But my story was a little bit, it's not what I'd recommend. I was driven by extreme scarcity. I was terrified that I would not have enough money to, to live my life. And I grew up with a family that was very fiscally responsible, but a lot of living for tomorrow, saving everything, preparing for Armageddon. So we never really enjoyed today very much. And over the past couple of years, you asked me earlier, and I said it's really been the past couple of years that I felt the massive change, and I've learned to trust myself. I'm living for today more than I ever have, like just night and day, and still saving and still preparing for the future, but much more living for today. And so this next phase of my life, it's a lot more faith. It's a lot more like I've set the foundation. I feel like I'm in a whole different place now of not building a business out of scarcity.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. There's a lot of stability to that. I think we all want stability. We all strive for that stability financially, emotionally, and all the different pillars. But I think getting yourself to that point to know you have the resourcefulness to build the stability and then just improve upon it, as opposed to having to tear the house down, I think is critical. I know you mentioned coaches, and now that you're a coach, you had a couple coaches early on that helped you through the process and kind of shock you into, hey, you're having this impact. You need to be, charging more because this is what, more aligns, and that helped you grow your business, and you're helping other people, do the same personally and business wise. What do you think folks listening in today should look for in a coach? One of the things I look for is kind of that integration between life and business, because they're so integrated that if, one's siloed, the other one kind of gets pushed to the wayside and breaks down. Did you look for something specific in that first coach? And then,
The first,
yeah.
oh, sorry to cut you off.
It's all right. Yeah.
No, the first coach, I didn't know that coaches were a thing, to be honest. Like, this was like really interesting. Like, I was like going to an acupuncturist, and like, I was so low and feeling so horrible that like anybody who would listen, I would literally be crying like on their shoulder. And this acupuncturist was very kind and sweet and, compassionate and smart. And she's like, I think you need like a life coach. She's like, my friend is a life coach. And then so like she introduced me to her friend, and I couldn't have landed I couldn't have landed in better hands.
Right.
Like, it was a woman. She's a little bit more mature, in her life. She's had an amazing career. She's done a lot of philanthropic, I don't know if I can say that word right, philanthropic work. And she herself had, like, she was a yoga teacher and had done she went through acupuncture school, but she had also been a very successful businesswoman as well, like very, very successful. And she's now a professor at NYU. I mean, I couldn't have been more lucky to fall in her hands. And I remember asking her once, I was like, can I talk to you about depression? And she was like, Matt, I'm not a therapist, but I'm a human. And I felt depressed. Absolutely. So she really helped me through a lot of it. And and she told me later, just like, she's like, it's not very often that like a client or a student, whatever you want to call it, will listen to a coach to the way you have. So I've listened to everything she's ever said. So I think it's been kind of cool probably for her to like mold me and to like teach me everything that she would have done with her life different. And I did it all. But I have a few different coaching situations going on, and I still work with her as well. But I would say it's like, and this is really, I think, the foundation of it all. And I'm not saying it's an easy task, but like, you need to find out what you are looking for, and like, you need to ask yourself like, my superpower is like introspection, like looking inward and seeing what I need. And I've learned to be very comfortable with my feelings and what I need in life and what I don't. And I'm happy to talk about that. I don't want to underestimate this. Like, I need help with a lot of this, but like, I would say it's, finding a coach. It's someone that you feel comfortable with, someone that you leave the introductory session with, and they've opened you up a little bit, someone that you feel comfortable with. I tend to feel like, and I'm probably like, not everyone would agree with me on this, but like, I think there's a lot of coaches out there that like are coaches that haven't really been through what they're coaching on. And that's my difference. I've been through anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. I've grown a business. I'm the scrappiest person I've ever met. I've learned to enjoy my life. I wouldn't be trying to coach somebody who's like, Bob Iger from the CEO of Disney. I don't think, unless he wanted help talking about like mental health a little bit or something, but I'm not going to coach him on like how to be a better leader. Like, so I think that's important for you to find someone that you trust and believe in. And it's like buying anything, it's like anything you do. You don't want to go to a doctor you don't feel good about. And you got to ask the right questions. And it's all about like the secret to life is about like learning to articulate and uncover what it is you want from your life. And that's a tall order. It's taken me, 10 years of really trying to figure that out. I'm not saying it's a 10-year process for everybody, but like, if I would have known what I know now, I wish that I would have known, just like, Matt, you have to open up about things. You have to be true to yourself. I've been in therapy for 20 years. And honestly, I can't tell you what we talked about for those first 15 years.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like, I must have just been like afraid of my feelings. I know that there was like people, therapists asking questions. And I was like, I guess, afraid to admit the truth, that I had a really traumatic childhood. And I guess I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and the magic happens when you start being honest with yourself about your feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
like, it was through yoga teacher training that this was really opened things up for me. And if there's one thing that I'm saying that I think is important, it's this: like, if you're working through trauma, or there's somebody that's hurt you or done something wrong to you, like, both can exist. They can be a good person, they could love you, and they could have also made a mistake. They could have done something that hurt you. They themselves could be traumatized and unable to admit they did something wrong. And once I learned that, like, oh, like, love and somebody loving me and me having been hurt by them aren't mutually, like, those can both exist. And that really opened me up to be able to, like, be honest about my emotions and what I remembered about my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was it about yoga teacher training that brought that out? Because I've been into yoga probably for the past like 8 years, and one of the things that I've always kind of found fascinating is I conversate with the teacher before and after the class, just like ask how their life's going, how are they feeling lately, like what are they excited about, like things like that. And it's interesting, the conversations are different before and after the class, because most of the time it fills their cup up, so they're like so excited, like, and it's just interesting to analyze what a journey like being trained to teach, guiding others. And I'm sure it's helped you in your coaching practice, but what was it about yoga teacher training that helped you kind of come to grips with it's not one or the other? It's not like somebody loves you, and if they do love you, they'll never hurt you. Or if they hurt you, then that means they don't love you.
Well, I think that, I mean, again, this is kind of similar to my coach. I fell into yoga teacher training. I was doing yoga for a while, and somebody said, you should really, like, check this out. And I made a call to a yoga teacher that I liked. He was like, oh my gosh, in 2 days, there's one starting in LA. I think you're going to love this teacher. And like, I called, she called me, and I loved her. I mean, I literally, this woman has, like, she means more to me than almost anyone in the world. And like, she still does some, I mean, I go to her classes, but like, she still does some teacher trainings. But like, I think I found her at this time in her life when she was really interested in mentoring people. And her story was similar to mine. She used to live in New York. She told us the story. I used to smoke cigarettes, and like, I was in fashion, and and I realized I was in this career that I didn't want anymore and stuff. And but yoga teacher training, I think it's very much like coaching. It's like there's a million different options out there. And I didn't know to ask any questions, but I fell into a yoga teacher training program with a highly philosophical yoga teacher. And I mean, I think to your question about like the concept of like both can exist, I'm assuming that that's like some ancient philosophy that probably is taught through a lot of different belief systems anyhow. So, but yeah, I mean, for me, it was really the first time I'd been in a room, like in a small group with people there was, probably 12 of us or so, 10 of us. And it was the first time I've ever been in a group like that, where everyone opened up about things. And like, I mean, everyone, I was in an abusive relationship, like, I mean, my job, this, like, my mom is crazy. And like, I started to see that, like, there was people like me that like are looking fine on the outside and functioning, and also have a lot of pain, and we all cried, and so that just showed me that, like, I guess it showed me that emotional health was real, because the therapy wasn't doing, like, therapists, I do believe in therapy very much, but there's a lot of therapists out there. And like, I think that just by nature, like, therapy is most of our entryway into emotional health. We don't know what to ask. Like, you go through your insurance, you pick the one that's covered by your insurance, and you go to them for 2 years, and you're not making progress, or you're not making a lot of progress because you don't know what progress looks like, where like, when you get to be like in yoga teacher training or, coaching, I mean, a lot of times you've already kind of like, or, like you've learned what good and what bad help looks like. And you know, for me, like some of the therapists I had before weren't great, but honestly, some of them were really good. And I guess I was just too closed off to really like let it permeate. Maybe it was where I was at in my life, and alcohol was working, keeping me, you know, I mean, it wasn't causing me the problems that it started to later, in terms of, you know, anxiety and depression and stuff. But yeah, being in a group with people, you know, I mean, just learning that you're not alone. None of us are alone.
Yeah.
Like everybody out there, we're all crazy. We're all going through problems. We all look at ourselves in the mirror and wish we saw something different. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody is exempt from this. Sorry, I cut
Yeah.
you off
No,
there.
it's just amazing the timing piece. Like somebody could say the same thing 5 years earlier, and they could say the same thing 5 years later, and you're a different person how it resonates with your internal voice. And one of the things that therapy has done for me is it allows me to ask myself the right questions because it's getting feedback from how the outside world, you know, translates what I'm going through on the inside world, whether they hear me and see what I'm actually saying or not. It's just kind of like, here's my translation, here's what you can kind of ask yourself. And it's kind of that increases that self dialogue. Like for me, you know, military family, athlete, like there was no opportunity to just like break down and just like let all your feelings, you know, out, whether that was conversational or crying or just like just finding a huge release of that, those emotional like bottlenecks. And what therapy's done for me is it's given me not the outlet to go just like cry with somebody, but the ability to ask myself the right questions and give myself grace when I do need to just like let everything out and kind of dump it out to push myself to that next level and get to that next breakthrough. And I think that's a big thing with therapy. And I found the right one because I looked for somebody who had that life and business and kind of that athletic background. So it kind of all integrated where he went through enough things that uniquely qualified him to help me through the situations I was going through. And I think that's what, I look for in a coach. And you mentioned it perfectly earlier. Like you don't want to get a coach that hasn't been through anything, right? They went to the 6-year college, they had the perfect family, like they drove the perfect car, like everything's been perfect, and they're trying to coach you. And maybe they're, academically and they've had the experience through other people, but you have to feel it to be able to relate to it. And I think that's what makes the best sports coach or the best life coach or the best business coach is somebody that says, I've done the hard work, I've been through that obstacle and hit my head on that wall. And I find that wisdom a lot with yoga teachers for some reason. I think yoga maybe brings people in that have been through difficulties, or they start to develop themselves in uncomfortable ways that put them through the difficult times. That's what brings me to yoga, is I've always been that introspective person, but the outside world didn't really feel like it was accepting that introspection. When I would ask, like, hey, like, what makes you feel fulfilled? It's like nobody was thinking about that. Or like, what have you gone through that's difficult lately? Most people are just like, oh, I don't go through difficulties. Like it's a part of life, right? It's like, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saying that too about yoga, because I mean, I go to a yoga studio. I'm a member at a gym as well, and I don't connect with every yoga teacher. I do connect with quite a few, but I mean, I can do my own yoga at home. Like I can teach myself, and I like that a lot. Especially like I'm very efficient with my time. I don't have to drive there and park and everything. But it is like I mean, the teachers that I don't really enjoy seem to be. I'm kind of judging a book by their cover a little bit, but I don't know that they've exactly been through what I've been through in life, where the ones that I do, again, you can kind of tell a little bit, what people are like, and they are people that speak to me, it's just an energy, I guess. But yeah, that's interesting. I haven't quite thought about why I enjoy some more than others. And it's definitely not the education. Like they're not bad teachers. I'm just not feeling emotionally connected with them, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's a wisdom they have, a wisdom you have. And then if the frequencies meet, it's like this was meant to be, but everybody's frequency is a little bit different. So
So it's
that's
not a
something.
book by its
Yeah.
cover. It's I'm
Yeah.
feeling the energy. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Excellent, Matt. It's been a fascinating discussion. Where can folks find you to engage with you, or take you up on your coaching?
Yeah,
If they
thank
want to learn
you.
more.
My website is my name, mattgerlach.com. Send me an email, matt@mattgerlach.com. I have I have something I'm working on right now that I'd be happy to send to you when I'm completed in a couple of days. It's just really what I wish I knew about setting goals and going after my dreams. I'm putting it all together in a nice booklet. So matt@mattgerlach.com. I have a weekly blog that I do, and I'm starting a podcast in the next few weeks as well. I'm very active on Instagram at I am Matt Gerlach. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like an open book when it comes to this. And if you're curious at all about coaching or just talking, like, put a half hour on my calendar, and I'd be happy to meet with you. No expectations. I'm just trying to connect with people and just hear what people are going through right now. So I'd appreciate anyone's interest.
Yeah, I love the open door. I want to acknowledge you for what you're putting out in the world. It's unique. Sharing your story authentically is
Thank you.
something a lot of people talk about, but not enough people do it. And there's a lot of people listening in that I know are scared to do it because they fear judgment, and we've all been there. And it's just amazing what happens when you start to share it authentically. Like most people, they start to more deeply relate to you, and that builds connection, that builds community. It builds what we started the show with, is progress, because it builds that connection. You go through painful experiences and express them, reflect on them, and then you progress forward. And I think we all want that forward momentum, but sometimes we don't recognize the painful experiences. We just want to basically put them to the side and still progress. So I don't think it doesn't happen as effectively, as efficiently. And we'll make sure, if you want to send me that link once you finish up the booklet, we're happy to put it in the show notes. I did put some of the links in there so people can check it out now or in the future. Matt, one of the ways we like to end the show is, what does connection mean to you?
What does connection mean to me? I mean, I think the most important connection is with yourself, and I think I'll tie it back to what you just said, I mean, about the authenticity. Not everybody's like deserving of your authenticity. I mean, a lot of my friends who are really, really good friends, I mean, I'm authentic with them, don't get me wrong. But I'm not, we're not talking about what I'm talking with you about right now. A lot of my friends I am. Family members, a lot of them I'm not talking about this kind of stuff with, but like that's really the importance of being in community, getting around people that like don't judge you. And I mean, it's more than don't judge you. It's like you're so normal. Like, I mean, we all struggle with things. Like there is nothing that's going through your mind that people haven't been through, so it's a connection with yourself, and just like learning to love yourself, like learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your story more than other people's version of the story, but just connected with yourself. And it's a process. Everything is a process. And I mean, mine took a while. I figured it I mean, I wish I would have had better help along the way. I mean, and that's what I want to help other people with. It might take a year or two to get where it took me 6 or 7 years to get to with the appropriate help, but it's a process, but it's a fun process.
Yeah.
Like every day gets better.
Yeah.
Stay connected to yourself.
Yeah, I love that. You're helping people time collapse that process that we had to take years to go through, and that's what makes the world a better place. So, I know you're doing that. Looking forward to staying connected and continuing the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.